Tales from Beyond the Greenhouse. Chapter 2. The Sound of Forgotten Power. The shovel bit into the earth with a satisfying crunch, scattering dirt into the dry mountain air. Joe wiped the sweat from his brow, leaning on the handle to catch his breath. The greenhouse was nearly done, but he'd decided to dig a trench for rainwater runoff. It was supposed to be a simple, mindless task, but as the blade struck something solid, metallic, his heart stopped. Joe knelt and began to scrape away the dirt with his hands, his calloused fingers working furiously. Soon the edges of a strange object emerged. It was a box, made of dull, tarnished metal, about the size of a toolbox, but sleeker, almost futuristic in design. Strange, almost organic markings were etched into its surface, their curves and lines unlike anything he'd ever seen. "CT!" Joe called out, his voice echoing off the ridges. She appeared moments later, her expression guarded. "What's wrong?" He motioned to the object. "Found this while digging. Looks like it's been buried for decades." CT crouched beside him, her sharp eyes narrowing as she examined the box. "This doesn't look like anything ordinary," she said, tracing the markings with a gloved hand. Her fingers paused on a symbol that resembled an atom, bisected by an arrow. "Military, maybe?" Joe nodded. "Could be something left over from the war. This area's not far from where they tested the bomb." "The Trinity Project," she whispered almost reverently. Joe pried at the box with his shovel, and with a metallic groan, it came loose from the earth. As he set it on the ground, a faint hum began to emanate from within. "Did you hear that?" Joe asked, stepping back instinctively. CT didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the box, her body tense. The hum grew louder, accompanied by a series of clicks and whirs, like ancient machinery struggling to wake. Then, with a faint hiss, the top of the box slid open. Inside was a device unlike anything Joe had ever seen. It resembled a handheld tester, with a small glass tube at its center filled with an eerie, pulsating light. Wires coiled around its base like veins, and strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface. As Joe reached toward it, CT grabbed his wrist. "Don't." "It's already on," he said, his voice steady despite the unease gnawing at his gut. The device emitted a high-pitched whine, and the air around them seemed to grow heavier, charged with an almost magnetic energy. The light in the glass tube pulsed faster, casting ghostly shadows on the dirt. "What the hell is this thing?" Joe muttered. CT's face was pale. "I think it's some kind of field generator. They were experimenting with technology like this during the Manhattan Project. Things they couldn't explain, things they couldn't control." Joe's mind raced. Why would they bury it out here? "To forget it," she said simply. "Or to hide it." Suddenly, the device emitted a sharp crackle, and a beam of light shot out, slicing through the air like a knife. It struck a nearby tree, and the bark sizzled before the tree collapsed in on itself, as if crushed by an invisible force. Joe and CT stumbled back, their faces lit by the flickering glow of the device. "Turn it off," CT shouted. Joe searched for a switch, a lever, anything that might stop the device. But there were no obvious controls, only the glowing symbols which now pulsed erratically, as if in response to their presence. Then came the noise. A low, guttural hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't mechanical, it was almost alive. The ground beneath them trembled, and Joe felt a cold dread settle in his chest. "It's not just a machine," CT said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's a beacon." "A beacon for what?" Joe demanded, his voice rising. Before she could answer, the light from the device intensified, bathing the clearing in an otherworldly glow. And in that moment, Joe realized they weren't alone. Shadows moved at the edge of the trees, figures indistinct but watching. "Joe," CT said, her voice shaking, "I think we just woke something up." The hum grew louder, a deafening roar that seemed to reverberate inside Joe's skull. The device pulsed one final time, and then everything went black.